basically the territory we're going to be working with for the spinal part, at least, of the upper body. It doesn't have the shoulders, and I'll see if I can come up with something that works with this. The territory of movement distortion that we're working with, because that's essentially what's happening. It's like our habits of movement and posture tend to create like these classic kind of like distortions or twists in our body. And what we're doing with the fascial work is to see if we can kind of undo them, and then I'll introduce you to the other parts in a little bit about, and how can we sort of understand the movements that are contributing to that starting in the first place, and start to kind of unpack that a little bit as well. I'm going to start with probably the classic twist in the body. Not everybody has this, and we have all kinds of different variations on the theme depending on accidents and surgeries and different things. But it goes something like this. If this is the right hip, it has this tendency to be twisted backward just a little bit. And I'm going to rest the spine on my shoulder because, as you can see, both sides went together. But in actual fact, if this right side twists backward a little bit, this one at the same time twists forward a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to put it on here. If you were to imagine, it's a little bit as if you were standing on your left leg and you were starting to step forward on your right leg. So there's kind of like this thing that happens in your pelvis to go with that. So when you do that, can you see how, when I do this, you see how the spine starts twisting toward the left side, right? And so what ends up happening with that is that you start getting a tight contraction often in this side here. And in the spine, because of that rotation that starts to happen, it also tends to create, like if you were looking at a person bent over and they had, for example, scoliosis is an exaggeration of exactly this pattern, that you would see, if a person bends over, you would see that their rib cage is up just a little bit on the right side. And so there's this kind of like stuck twist that happens like this in the spine. So those are some of the anomalies that create kind of more tension through the left side. If you see a person standing, often there's a little bit of a tilt this way to the left, and a whole bunch of other stuff that happens. It's, for that reason, the shoulder blade has to slide forward more to kind of compensate for that, and therefore we get all kinds of glitchiness for many people in the right shoulder. More there's all the way through the body, there's compensations that happen. And I'll reference them as I go through, but because today we're just going to really focus on coming up through the spine, what we call the back body, and looking at its relationship front to back, I just wanted to give you a sense of what you're probably going to feel a little bit of as you go through here. You might get a little bit of glitchiness in the sacroiliac joint on one side or the other, because there can be that little bit of a twist and a stuckness that's happening, sometimes a little bit of a shift as well. And then as you come out of the sacrum, this triangle-shaped fused bone, you start getting into the lumbar vertebrae. There's 5 of them here. And the first place that you can run into issues around the vertebrae themselves is that first place where there's some articulation. And you can see, yes, they've got it way further up here, but often you'll have little disc protrusions that things get squished and pushed out because of the load that comes down here and a bit of a twist that happens there. And then if you come up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right here, you start getting into, you see where the spinous processes, that's what these transverse processes are sticking out here. You see how they disappear right here? That's where the first rib starts. So the next place where you get a bit of a transition point is things are a little bit more fixated here. There's got much more movement happening in the lumbar spine, so you might notice some glitchiness has happened here. Then you'll hear me reference this whole lower part of the back posterior rib cage is where the diaphragm comes and attaches. And so both fixating here and also in the ribs going out from there, you can sometimes feel if your diaphragm is really stuck, you can feel things, sorenesses, for example, restrictions there. There's another one a little bit higher up, just below the lower points of the shoulder blades, essentially a bra strap line, where you'll notice stuff, and then it gets into a whole different territory in between the shoulder blades. And those will be the main areas that I'm going to reference, and you might notice stuff as we